Welcome back, everyone. Today I continue my match in the quarterfinals of the Chess Global Championship here in Toronto, Canada. Now, as you guys know, I started off on day one by winning all 4 games in the best of 8 match against Jan Krzysztof Duda from Poland. So going into game number 5, I had the white pieces, and all I needed was 1 draw to advance to the semifinals. Away we go. So the game starts with e4. Now, being up 4-0, I wasn't sure whether Duda would want to play something very aggressive, perhaps already throw in the towel as well. Instead, he decides to challenge me by playing e6. So I played d4, d5, knight c3, and now Duda plays this move, pawn takes pawn on e4, knight takes pawn, and he plays this move, bishop d7, essaying the Rubinstein variation of the French. I go knight f3, bishop c6, bishop d3, and now he plays knight d7. Now, this is a line that has been played a lot by Badur Jobava, grandmaster from Georgia. This specific line, by the way, with bishop c6 is known as the Fort Knox variation. So now here I castle without thinking. In this position, what I should have done is I should have started with c3. And the reason that I should have played c3 is that now if black plays knight f6, after knight takes knight, black is unable to take with the queen, because after bishop to g5, bishop takes f3, queen to d2, the queen on f6 is trapped here. The pawn on c3 guards d4. The bishop on d3 covers the light squares. And of course, the queen guards the bishop on g5. And white would be winning here. So I should have done this. But again, first game of the day, a little bit slow. I automatically castled here without a second thought. And now after knight to f6, I very quickly took on f6. What I should have done here is played knight e to d2. And after bishop takes f3, knight takes f3. White is a little bit better here because you can play c3. You have the great sniper on d3. And there should be no issues. But without hesitation, I just took on f6 immediately because I simply forgot that now queen takes f6 was available. Because if I go bishop g5 here, now after bishop takes f3, if I play the move queen d2, black can take the pawn on d4, which is why I should have played c3 before castling to the king side. So as soon as Duda took on f6, I was already quite unhappy with what was going on. That being said, I still should be okay. So I play bishop to e2, retreating the bishop to guard the knight on f3 and not compromise my pawn structure on the king side. Duda plays bishop to d6. I go pawn to c4, and now he plays this move, bishop e4. And here I make a mistake. I play the strange move, knight g5. Now already here, I was starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I should have realized that at this point, there really is nothing to fear. And if anything, I should just go bishop to e3 here. And after black castles, at the very least, I can play something like knight to d2, bishop to g6, bishop f3, targeting the pawn on b7. And after c6, I can play a very quiet move like pawn to g3 here, followed by either bishop to e4 or knight to e4, and I should have no issues at all. Doesn't mean I'm much better, but there really should be no risk, in particular because I have a good pawns here in the center on c4 and d4. At any rate, I play knight g5, and after bishop to g6, I end up playing this move bishop e3. Initially, I was intending to play bishop f3, but after this move h6, the problem is that now if I go knight e4, black can trade and take this pawn on h2, and after king takes h2, queen a4, king to g1, queen takes e4, I'm simply down a pawn here and in a lot of trouble. So after bishop g6, I play this move bishop e3, Duda castles, I go bishop to d3, he plays h6, and now I play this move knight f3. Also not the best move. What I should have done here is I should have traded the bishops on g6, gone knight f3 here, and I can just play something like queen b1 or rook c1 and queen c2, and again, very, very minimal risk here, and I should be able to draw the game without too much difficulty. But instead, I play knight to f3, and now Duda correctly plays bishop h5, which keeps more pieces on the board. So now I play bishop to e4 here, which is a mistake. I should have gone bishop to e2 and then moved the knight probably, but at any rate, I play bishop e4, Duda plays c6, and now I play queen to b3, rook a b8, and now I really start to make some mistakes. I play rook f e1, and after rook f e8 here, I have to be very, very careful. In this position, white is still probably okay if you play a move like h3 or queen c3, but already here I was very uncomfortable, and I played this move bishop d2, which really doesn't do anything. I was hoping to reroute the bishop to the c3 square to contest this diagonal, but it's way too slow, as Duda proves, because he plays pawn to e5 here. And now I play this move d takes e5. What I initially wanted to do was actually after takes, I thought I could trade. Sorry, not trade here. I thought I could play bishop c3, but the problem is that now after knight takes f3, bishop takes f3, queen f4, I'm actually going to lose the game because I cannot stop black from taking the pawn on h2 unless I play g3, but after queen takes f3, I'm down a bishop, and if I play bishop takes bishop, queen takes h2, king f1, queen h1 would be checkmate here. The king has no squares. So in this position, I play this move rook a b1, which doesn't do anything at all. It was just a move I played because I didn't see anything really great to play. So I go rook b1, Duda trades, And now he plays queen h4, and already the position is definitely difficult to play. I am going to be losing a pawn either on h2 or c4, and I simply have to try to hang on. So I play g3, Duda takes, I go pawn to a3 here. He plays bishop to e5. Very important move, by the way, because, for example, say black plays a move like a6 and I get bishop c3. This bishop on c3 is very, very well placed, and the bishop on d6 is very passive here. It probably would have to go back to f8. Now, black is up a pawn, so he should be fine anyway. But by going bishop e5, now black is a much more active bishop, and my bishop on d2 can't go to c3 because black would just trade, and so I always have a problem on this diagonal now. So here I go bishop to e3, Duda plays a6, now I play queen f5, and Duda makes a big mistake here. He plays this move pawn to g6. Now, black is still better after this move, but it's based on an oversight here. What he probably should have done here is played something like queen to e6, or even a move like queen to, I guess queen b3 might allow bishop a7, but even a move like queen a2 should be fine as well. Instead, he plays g6, and after I go queen d7, Duda started shaking his head because he suddenly realized that there are some serious problems here. First and foremost, I'm threatening to take the pawn on h6, but if black tries to play h5 and not lose the pawn, I now have this very nasty move bishop to a7, attacking the rook on b8, and after the rook goes to d8, I can just take the pawn on b7, and material is equal, and I should have no problems at all. So Duda finds queen b3, which is the best move, but now after bishop takes h6, rook b to d8, I go queen to g4, and Duda plays c5 here. Now he maybe could have taken the pawn on b2, but I understand why he didn't do it, because the problem with taking on b2, as I recall, was that I could play... What did I think I could play here? I thought I had some move. Yeah, I think I could trade and go queen to d7 here. And the problem is if black just goes like rook a8, I have queen to d2, winning the bishop on b2. And if black goes bishop c3, I take, and win the bishop. So after queen d7, I thought black has to play something like rook e2 here to prevent queen d2. But after something like queen d8, king h7, and I think... maybe not bishop e3, but something like queen h4, I thought I would have some chances here to save the game. So I was very optimistic, and Duda actually did not take the pawn. Instead, he plays c5, and here I play a move that I, after the game, felt wrong. Now, during the game, it made some sense, which was this move, bishop g5. What I should have done is I should have played something like rook e3, followed by rook e1 with a double stack. And I think if I had done this, I probably would have been able to save the game and draw without too much difficulty. Instead, I played bishop g5. And after rook d4, I played this move queen h3, which is sort of a fairly serious blunder. What I should have played here was bishop f4. And after rook to e6 here, I can now play rook takes e5, and I have queen c8, which would be winning the game. And black already can't really do a whole lot. Maybe he can play queen a4 to guard the rook on e8 and threaten to win material on f4. But at any rate, this should not be that bad, because I also have a move like queen e2 here, reinforcing the pin on the e file. However, during the game, I played this move queen h3, and I played it quickly, but it was simply based on an oversight, which is that after rook e6, I thought that I could play rook takes bishop, and bishop f6 with the idea of checkmate on h8, and if black goes rook h5, I have queen c8 check, king h7, and queen to h8, which ends the game. Unfortunately for me, if I had done this, as I realized, there's rook to d1 check, and after I take, I go king to g2, black has queen d5 check. If I go to f1, there's queen h1 checkmate. If I go to g1, there's rook e1, and black will win shortly. And if I play f3, black goes rook e2, king f1, and queen to d1 checkmate as well. So I was very unhappy as soon as I realized this, and I ended up playing this move bishop e3. Duda goes rook d5, I play queen g4, he goes c4, I play rook d1, and now he plays this move rook d3. Now, this move is not terrible per se, but I think in this position, if he had played something like rook e d6, I'm in a lot of trouble here because I have this very weak pawn on b2. The c pawn is very quickly going down the board, and the computer actually thinks that black is significantly better. Duda instead plays rook d3, but now after I trade, you'll notice that we have a 2-on-2 on the queen side, and this passed d pawn can now be blockaded very easily by the bishop on e3. So I played rook c1 pretty quickly. Now after the game, or actually not after the game, after I played this move, another move that I regretted, because Duda played this move rook to c6, and now I was very, very unhappy once again. Now, in this position, after a little bit of think, I played rook b1, a blunder. What I should have done is traded and played queen to c8. Sorry, not queen to c8. Sorry, I should have played queen to e4, attacking the pawn on c6 and the bishop on e5. But after bishop takes b2, queen takes c6, black still remains better, but I should be okay. Now, the reason I did not play this is because my tactical vision was simply not there, and I thought that d2 wins the game, because now if I take the pawn, there's queen to d1 check, winning the bishop. However, I have queen to e8 check in between move, king to g7, bishop takes d2, and now if queen d1 check, I can simply go queen to e1, and this should be a draw. So I was not very sharp tactically. I just felt a little bit off, and I played this move rook to b1 instead. And now Duda plays queen c2. I go rook to f1. He takes his pawn, and now I play queen to d7. Still very, very bad, but I'm hoping that maybe I can play queen to e8, maybe some h4, h5 ideas, and I'm hoping for a miracle. So Duda plays b5 here. I go pawn to h4. Again, idea to maybe play h5, try to open up some ideas with checks on d8 and g5. Duda takes on a3. I play pawn to h5. He takes, and now I play this move queen to d8, bishop f8, and here I missed sort of my last chance in the game. Now, initially I did intend to play rook c1, but as I realized after black takes and king g2, rook c6, I can take the pawn on d3, and weirdly enough, the computer actually thinks it should be a draw, but I felt with the pawn being on b4 and the rook going to like g6, I simply thought that with these two connected pawns and a very safe king on g8, that I would lose this eventually. Now, the computer actually thinks it should be a draw, so it was a very big miss. Instead, I play queen to g5. Duda blocks, I take on h5, goes queen to e2, I go queen to d5. Now the reason this is losing is because I'm down 2 pawns here, but again, the black king is very, very safe on g8 with the bishop on f8 and the rook on g6. So Duda plays rook d6, I check, he goes here, I play queen e7, I check, and now here I make a fateful blunder with king g2. Probably I should have played queen h4, but it wouldn't have really changed the outcome because after bishop to h6, let's say I trade and go queen f4, after a move like queen to e6 with ideas like queen d5, queen c6, or queen to h3, there are all these different ideas with checkmates, and the fact that I'm down two connected passed pawns on the queen side means that I had no hope. Instead, I play king g2, which is just a blunder because after rook takes e3, rook h1, black can play king g6. I actually thought bishop h6 was the only move when I looked very briefly. And after this, I would have been able to draw with takes, check, and there will be a perpetual here. Black has no way to escape, but of course Duda has this move king g6, and now I play queen d5, he goes rook e5, and I simply resign the game because now I'm down a bishop and some pawns, and it's completely hopeless. So very, very disappointing first game. I was obviously very unhappy with myself, but I think when I look back on the match now, this was due in large part to the fact that I had a 4-0 lead, and it all felt too easy, and I just wasn't completely sharp at the start of this second day. So I lose this first game, so now I lead 4-1. And we go to the 6th game of the match where I play with the black pieces. Now this game starts out with the classic Catalan defense, and I won't go through a whole lot in terms of the opening because many of you guys have seen these lines before, but I play this b5 system that Jan Nepomniachtchi played against Magnus Carlsen in the last World Championship match. This line is pretty well known, and we get to this critical position right about here where again, not going to go through all the moves. We get to a critical position right here where we have this situation where we're getting rook and opposite colored bishops, and white will have 1 extra pawn. Now, people will probably have noticed that this position that occurs in the game here with white having 5 versus 4 can occur out of another setup too. So another line that can occur in the system is white can play this move queen to c3, and now after c5 there's bishop e3, knight e4, queen e1, knight b4, knight c3, you trade, you play rook takes a1, queen takes a1, knight c2, queen c1, takes, and now you can trade, and I believe after bishop f6 there's you trade, bishop f6, rook d1. You get a very similar system where white again has 5 on 4, and I've actually had many games in similar positions against Dmitry Andreikin in the Rapid Chess Championship over the past couple of months. So this endgame occurs in many different scenarios. Now, the one thing that's important to note is that in this position I trade, and here I make an actually surprisingly fundamental mistake. I play this move pawn to e5. Now, this is still probably fine. It should be a draw. But what I should have done here is I actually should have played g6. And the reason I should have done this is because inevitably white's going to have to try to push this pawn to d5 at some point and trade the e pawn for the d pawn. And so it's not really a concern, whereas when I play e5 in the game here, white has this idea with h4 to put this pawn on h5, and surprisingly this is quite tricky to play. So what I should have done is I should have played g6, because if white ever tries to go h4, I can now play h5, fixing the pawn chain from f7 to h5 and f2 to h4. And at some point white will have to play d5, like you'll get some position like this, for example, but I'm going to have this chain versus what occurs in the game where here we get the structure where white has this pawn on h5 and I have h6 and g5. Now, this is still probably holdable. It should probably still be a draw perfect play, but there are far more issues with this than if I had the chain from f7 to h5, for example. So the game goes on. Now, again, there are a lot of moves that are played here without much happening. Obviously Duda trying to gain some time on the clock, so I'm not really going to go through all these moves. We basically shuffle our pieces for about 40 moves, and then right about as we're shuffling, there's going to be a situation where finally at this point Duda plays f4. Now again, a lot of shuffling, just moving rooks and bishops and everything. Now I had held pretty well up to this point, and I felt like I was very close to a draw when Duda played f4. Additionally, at this point in time, I was also up on the clock. So I take the pawn on f4, Duda takes, and here I play rook to a3, targeting the pawn on e3. He plays e4, and now I make a fairly serious blunder. Initially during the game, I thought after e4 I could play rook c3. If white trades, this would be a very easy draw with the opposite colored bishops, even though white has an extra pawn. But during the game, I suddenly got scared because I saw rook a6. I thought that after takes, this was going to be a very difficult endgame, but in fact, this is quite easy to draw after rook g2, king f3, rook h2, king g3, and rook h1. If white goes king g2, there's always rook h4, keeping an eye on the pawns on h5 and f4. And if white doesn't go king g2, his rook is always going to be stuck on the 5th rank, guarding the pawn on h5. So I should have done this, but for some reason during the game I panicked and I thought, you know what, I don't want to do that, so I played bishop to e1, which is a very serious mistake, because now after bishop to d1 I'm in serious trouble because white can play e5, f5, and f6 eventually. I played bishop d2, Duda goes rook d6, bishop c1, and again there's a little bit more shuffling here. We get back to this position right about here. A lot of shuffling, not much happening, and Duda goes king f5. I play bishop d2, rook b2, bishop c1, check, and finally he plays this move e5. And as you'll notice, the problem with this position is quite simple. White is going to go king e4 and f5 and f6. Now, if you envision this with, say, the structure of f7 to h5, all these ideas with f5 would never be possible because I would have a pawn on g6. But because white was able to get that structure with h5 versus h6 and g5, that's why we have reached the situation where white is able to push these pawns up the board. So I go rook d7, Duda plays rook a5, I go bishop d2, rook b5, now I go rook a7, desperately trying to go rook a4 and target this pawn on f4, but Duda plays this extremely well, rook b2. Bishop to e3, he goes rook g2, king f8, rook e2, bishop c1, rook c2, bishop e3, and now he goes king e4, because now I no longer have squares on the diagonal for the bishop to move to, either c1 or d2, and now white is going to push f5 and f6, and there are going to be some serious problems and potential mating nets as well. So I go bishop g1, he plays rook c6, which by the way is not the best move, probably here already. I think he should have played rook c8 followed by f5, and it's very, very scary here. And I'm in a lot of trouble. Actually, after king e7, I think white can again go king f5, and there are all sorts of problems, but it's really scary at the very least. Instead, he plays rook c6. I go bishop to h2, which is not the best. So probably here I should have played rook to a4 check, and after bishop c4, maybe I can play something like bishop h2, trying to again go after the pawns on f4 and e5. But this is very, very scary. So I play bishop h2 here, Duda goes rook f6, I go king g7, he goes king f3 here, I play bishop g1, which is a mistake. I should not have played this move, but Duda misses a winning line here. He goes rook c6, he could have played bishop takes f7, because after rook takes f7, rook g6, he would win the bishop on g1, but of course at this point both of us were fairly low on time. So he goes rook c6, I play bishop d4, king e4, bishop e2, and now he finally gets f5 in here, because when I play rook to a4, he will have bishop c4 blockading, and this idea of f6 or rook c7 is probably just winning for white already. So instead I play f6 here, Duda plays e6, which apparently is not the best move. I don't know why. Apparently rook takes f6, rook a4, and I guess king e3 is actually winning, but it's very hard to play this because after bishop e5, rook g6, king h7, f6, it might be winning, but if you're wrong, it's going to be a draw. It's also worth noting rook f7 and f6 would be winning as well. At any rate, Duda plays e6 here, which is still good, but there probably are chances to hold. I play bishop a3, trying to blockade on the dark squares here. He goes bishop c4, play bishop e7, rook c8 is played, and now I play this move bishop d6, which is a blunder because it gives white an extra tempo with king to d5. Now what I should have played here was rook to a5. If I go rook a5 with the idea of playing rook to e5, technically this is still probably a draw, but as I said before, both of us very low on time, so I play this move, but the reason this is bad is because now white is going to have a tempo with king d5 at some point. So I go bishop a3, he goes king d5, I go back, he goes king c6, I play rook a1 here, which is a blunder, but already it's probably lost. Maybe I can try to survive with bishop a3, but after king b6, rook e7, bishop d7, my rook is now stuck in jail, and I think eventually this should be winning for white. So I play rook a1, he goes king d7, I go rook a7, he goes king e8, important move. I play bishop to d6, which of course loses on the spot. What I had to try was bishop a3, but again, after bishop to d7 with the idea of e7, I suspect this is losing. Maybe the computer says there's some miracle. Actually, it doesn't. But it's already very, very bad. So I go bishop d6, he plays bishop d7, cutting off the rook from the pawn. I go bishop a3, he plays e7, and now I go bishop b4, hoping for king d8, because then I can check the king back to e8. So he plays rook b8, I go bishop a5, trying to keep the king locked in here, where it cannot run out so the pawn can promote. But Duda plays this perfectly, he goes bishop e6, I go bishop c7, rook to d8, I go back, and now he goes rook d4. Very important move, because now white can use this g file to check the king off of this g7 square, and then white's king will escape to either f7 or f8. I play rook a8, king d7, check, king d6, I check, king d5, I play rook a8, and now Duda plays rook g4, and here I resign. There are many ways for white to win. Probably the simplest one is just rook g8, or even moves like bishop f7 or bishop d7 to make a queen, and there's nothing I can do. So what has happened? I lose a second very tough game in a row, and now the match score is 4-2. Again, I still have to lose 2 more games in a row in order for me not to win the match in regulation. So we go to game number 7, the final game of the match, where I have the white pieces. Now you're probably wondering, what did I tell myself at this point in time? The main thing that I was telling myself here is just basically try to stay calm, stay relaxed. You have the white pieces, just keep it all under control as much as you can. So I play e4. Duda does not play the French in this 7th game of the match. He plays the Sicilian. I go knight f3, knight c6, and now I play c3. It's worth noting, of course, I could have played d4 in an open Sicilian, but I figured against Duda in this situation, c3 generally leads to more positional play. Game tends to be a little bit slower. Also, when I tried to play c5, knight c6 in a must-win game against Magnus Carlsen in one of the Meltwater events last year, he also played c3 against me. So knight f6 is played by Duda, I go e5, knight to d5 is played, and now I go pawn to d4. Duda decides to trade, he plays d6, I go bishop to c4, knight b6, and now I play bishop to b5 here. And the reason I play this line is, again, at this point the game is very, very slow. Black can trade and play bishop d7, but after moves like knight d7, queen d7, and knight c3, white should be okay here, and it's very, very slow game, limited material on the board, and white is never really in any danger of losing. So Duda, to his credit, plays this move e6 here. Now, this is not the best move in the position, but he needs to win the game, so he's willing to take some risks. Now, here I play this move bishop g5, and after the game, I think that this was probably a mistake. I think I should have just continued with normal piece play, like knight c3, bishop e7, castles, and something like queen to e2, for example, followed by rook to d1, and I think white is a little bit better, but the show goes on. However, I play bishop g5, which now leads to something that's somewhat imbalanced, because after queen c7, I castle, and he goes bishop d7, and already here I have a tough decision. If I trade on c6, black gets a bishop pair here. This bishop on c6 is very, very well placed, and I might have some problems in the long run. If I don't take, well, then I might lose the pawn at e5. So say I play knight c3, there's probably something like takes, knight takes e5, and after takes. Apparently the computer thinks white is better here. I don't know why, but I wasn't convinced, and I thought I was just down a pawn, although I guess after bishop h4, bishop g3, black will have some problems here in the center of the board. At any rate, I didn't see this, so I didn't go for it. So instead, I decide to take on d6, Duda takes, and now I play knight to c3. Duda correctly plays a6. This is an important move, because first of all, it kicks the bishop off of this diagonal. Secondly, if I move the bishop away, like I do in the game, there's no knight b5 fork here, because the pawn on a6 covers the square. So I go bishop d3, Duda plays h6. Now I go bishop to e3. Worth noting, if he had played a move like knight b4, I thought that after rook to c1 here, trying to attack on the c file, knight takes d3, queen takes d3, let's just say it goes queen b8. I have knight e4 here, and again, I don't think I should ever really be in any danger of losing the game. So Duda instead plays h6. Now I go bishop to e3. Initially, I wanted to play bishop h4, but then I suddenly noticed there's this move f5 here with the idea of g5. So if I play like a3, g5, bishop g3, f4, I would lose the dark square bishop. And I was just already very scared, so if I play bishop g3, if I play bishop g3 here, there's also f4. Now, maybe this is good for white, but already I started to see things and I was getting a little bit concerned. So I thought, why go that way when I can just go back to e3 and keep an eye on the pawn on h6. Now, here Duda plays f5, which did not actually catch me by surprise. I was sort of expecting it. Now, here I play d5, sacrificing a pawn, but trying to open up this dark square diagonal towards the knight on b6 and potentially the a7 square as well. Duda takes with the knight. I trade on d5, and now I play this move bishop c2, which During the game, I thought this was right. I didn't want to spend too much time. Computer actually thinks queen b3 followed by rook c1 and rook d1, and white's just much better. But bishop c2 made sense to me because now I try to win the pawn on d5. I can put the bishop on b3. And additionally, I have ideas like rook c1 after black castles to the queen side, like in the game. So after castles, I play rook c1 here. Now, the computers actually think I should probably take the pawn on d5, but at this point, I already felt like, you know what, Duda's trying to attack on the king side. I feel like my attack on the queen side should be a little bit quicker here, so I'm going to trust myself and just go for it. So Duda plays g5 here. I go bishop to a4. Now, there's a lot of pressure on the c file. I also have ideas like knight d4 with maximum pressure. Duda plays g4. I go knight to d4, he takes the pawn, I play king h1, and now he goes bishop e5. So temporarily, black is up 2 pawns here. He has an extra d and an extra h pawn, but his king on c8 is very, very weak, and I have great placement with the bishop, the knight, and the rook on c1, and black also is not really able to attack my king very quickly here. So now I play this move, bishop takes c6, which during the game I thought was okay. Afterwards, I had a feeling that I probably should have played something like queen b3 to even create more pressure on the queen side, but during the game, I ended up taking on c6, trying to just keep it very simple. Duda trades, I take, and now I go queen to a4 here, attacking both the pawn on a6 and c6. Computer actually thinks queen d3 is a little bit better, potentially attacking a6 and f5, but I ended up playing queen a4. Duda plays rook to d6 here, guarding the pawn on c6. Now I go queen takes a6 here. There also is a move like f4 here, but I just thought at this point in the game, I want to keep the ideas very simple, and there's really only one idea black has, which is to try and checkmate me on the king side. So if I keep things pretty simple, where I have very straightforward moves, I should never be in danger. So I take on a6, he goes queen b7, play queen d3, attacking the pawn at f5, he plays queen f7, and now after a bit of a thing, I play queen a6 check. I could have played king g1 right away, but I'm able to go here because now if black blocks again, after queen d3, Duda cannot take the draw. So instead, after check, Duda goes king d7, and now I play this move king to g1, sidestepping the checkmate ideas with queen h5. It's worth noting if I played g3 first to stop the mating ideas, now black can play h5, h4, and maybe, I guess according to computer, white's still okay, but this looks very, very scary. So by going king g1, the point is if black plays queen h5 and I go g3, he's now too slow because he has to move the queen before he can play h5 and h4, opening up the h file for the rook on h8. So Duda plays rook c8. Now I go bishop b6. Important move, so I'd love to play queen b7 check. And if king e6, I take the rook. And if he goes back, he loses the queen. But of course, if I check right away, there is rook c7. So I play bishop b6 with the idea of queen b7. He goes rook to e6. And now I play a move that I was very unhappy with. I played this move rook fd1, which was based on a complete miscalculation. Now, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have just gone rook fe1 in one go to prevent the move that he plays in the game with rook b8, because then I could trade and go queen a7 check, and I'm winning some material. Instead, I played rook fd1 because at this point, I didn't actually know what Duda could play. I didn't actually see a good move. You can't move the king, you lose the rook. You can't move the rooks of queen b7 check. I thought I'm just winning here because let's just say black plays h5. I can go queen b7, bishop to c7, and then I can just trade and go rook takes d5. And this would be game over. So I already thought this was completely winning after rook d1 with these ideas like queen b7 and rook d5 and everything else, but Duda found rook b8, and suddenly I was very unhappy because I realized that now if I check, black goes king d8 and the bishop guards the rook on b8, and the king also guards the queen on f7, and I'm still down a pawn here, and the king is actually pretty safe running to f8 and g8. Fortunately, I kept my wits about me, and I now found this very important move, rook to e1, with the idea that if black plays something like h5, again, I can trade and go queen a7 check, winning material. So here, Duda plays king e8, which is the final blunder in the game. He could have maybe played bishop c7 to try and survive, but after trades and rook e d1, black is temporarily up a pawn, but the king is so weak here. There's so many threats like queen a7, rook takes c6, rook takes d5, that objectively, I don't think Duda would have been able to survive this. And at the very least, I don't think he would have had any winning chances. Instead, however, Duda plays king e8, trying to run the king to safety, but this loses to a very nice tactic, which I spotted, which is bishop to d4 here. And now, black doesn't really have a choice other than take the bishop. You can't really guard with like queen e7, because I can just trade and take on c6 and win the game. So he takes, but now I have queen takes c6 check. Black cannot take the queen with the rook, because then my rook on e1 would capture the king on e8. He goes king to e7, but now I have queen c7 check, winning the rook on b8. And the rest is actually very straightforward. He plays king f6. I take the rook on b8. Now I have a rook for a bishop. More importantly, black cannot go g3 here, because I can just take with the queen from b8. So Duda plays king g6, and now I play pawn to g3. Just a very quiet move, probably not necessary, but it stops black from ever going g3. I can also bring the queen to f4, and with this open king on g6, it's simply hopeless. So Duda plays rook to b6. I go queen f4, queen f6. Now I play rook c to d1, trying to remove the bishop from d4 and or win the pawn on d5. Duda plays bishop c5. I take the pawn. Goes rook b4. Now I play queen to e5, just offering the trade of the queens. Obviously, if queens come off, this will be a very straightforward technical win for me. So he plays bishop takes f2. I take. He plays rook b2. I go king g1, and now I plays queen b6. And here I play the very calm move, queen to e3. And with the extra rook on d5, there's nothing that black can do. And Duda resigns in the 7th game of the match, and I end up winning when all is said and done by the final score of 5-2. So what are the takeaways? I think the main takeaway for me as I move into the semifinals and play Wesley So is that I need to stay sharp at all times. Again, with the 4-0 lead, I was definitely a little bit lackadaisical in that first game that we played today, and it definitely set a bad trend for the day. Now, fortunately, I was able to recover in the 3rd game of the day and finish off the match, but I do need to focus a little bit more and be a little bit sharper, rather than just thinking it's all going to be super easy and smooth from start to finish. At any rate, we get the win, 5-2. The semifinals of the Chess Global Championship will begin tomorrow. I will be playing against my fellow American compatriot, Wesley So. It again is going to be a best of 8 games, so it'll be 4 games on the first day and then 4 games on the second day. I will be bringing you guys more recaps from the semifinal match, so I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with hopefully an upbeat and positive recap after I play against Wesley So. See you guys soon. Bye.